Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel World of Knowledge. Today we are going to discuss about Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own. Let's start. Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own is a seminal extended essay originally delivered as a series of lectures in 1928 that explores the historical and material conditions that have prevented women from achieving excellence in writing. Her central and now famous thesis is a woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction. Woolf argues that financial independence and a private space are crucial for a woman to develop the intellectual freedom necessary for creative work. First point is the narrator and the thesis. The essay is represented through the persona of a fictional narrator, often referred to as Mary Beaton, Mary Saturn, or Mary Carmichael, who is tasked with speaking on the topic of women and fiction. The setting is from Oxbridge. The narrator begins by recounting a visit to the fictional Oxbridge. Oxbridge means a mash-up of Oxford and Cambridge. She reflects on the vast difference in the resources and intellectual environment available to men. Grand libraries, lavish meals, centuries of tradition versus the meager, poorly funded women's colleges, where the meals are simple and the environment restrictive. She observes that the material prosperity of male institutions translates directly into intellectual privilege and freedom. Second point is research and men's anchor. The narrator then visits the British Library to research why women have historically been poor. Books by men on women. She finds countless books written by men about women, but almost none written by women on men. She notes the striking tone of anger and defensiveness in the male author's writings about the female sex. The mirror metaphor. She concludes that throughout history, women have served as a looking glass or mirror to men, reflecting them back as twice their natural size. Men's assertion of women's inferiority is often a way to maintain their own sense of superiority and confidence, which is vital for them to conquer and govern. Third point is the tragedy of Judith Shakespeare. To dramatically illustrate the consequences of these limitations, Woolf invents the fictional character of Judith Shakespeare, William Shakespeare's equally gifted but imaginary sister. Lack of opportunity. Despite her genius, Judith is denied the education and freedom her brother receives. She is trapped by domestic duties, discouraged from reading, and pressured into marriage. A tragic ends. When she runs away to London to pursue a theoretical career, she is mocked, sexually harassed, and ultimately betrayed. Unable to realize her potential, she tragically commits suicide. The point, Judith's story is the counterfactual. A woman with a great mind, ruined by the lack of the very things Wool advocates for: money, a room, and institutional support. Wolf suggests that many women throughout history, persecuted as witches or simply silenced, were likely unexpressed literary geniuses. Fourth point is the history of human writers. The narrator then turns to the actual history of women's writings or women writers, tracing their gradual path towards literary expression. Early obstacles. Early women writers like Afra Ben and had to overcome social ridicule and write primarily for money. The lack of training and tradition often forced them to write in limited, often domestic forms. 19th century breakthrough. Writers like Jane Austen and the Bronte sisters began to emerge, often working within the confines of the novel, a form that could be managed privately in the shared sitting room. However, their work was sometimes warped by the need to hide their anger or by their lack of experience with the broader world. 20th century freedom. Woolf suggests that by her own time, the 1920s, women like her, contemporarily Mary Carmichael, are beginning to write with greater freedom, having inherited a tradition from those who came before. Fifth point is androgyny and the future. In the final chapter, Woolf discusses the ideal state for a creative mind. Androgynous mind. Woolf argues that the greatest minds, such as Shakespeare's, are androgynous. They are able to operate freely without the constraints of gender. In such a mind, the man and woman within cooperate. When a writer is too conscious of their gender or writes in anger at their oppression, their work suffers. A call to action. Woolf concludes by urging her female audience, that means the students at the women's colleges, to secure their money and their room. She tells them to use their freedom not just to write well, but to create a space and a tradition that will allow the metaphorical Judith Shakespeare to come back to life in the next century and finally express her genius.